I think it's important that before you try to increase your MMR, you should have a really good understanding of what MMR actually means and everything that it entails. And a lot of people think it's just a representation of skill, but I disagree. I think MMR, in the most basic terms, is your ability to win multiplied by your games played. So of course this involves skill, but it also involves time, and it also involves a few other factors that I'm gonna speak about later. So I think MMR is like your ability to win is a combination of these things. First of all, your skill. This is basically what you think about when you call someone a good player. It's how good are they at last hitting? How good are you gonna be at using your skills in a team fight? Everything that involves movement and spellcasting in game is what I define as skill on a micro level. However, also very important is going to be strategy. And this is also very important for good players, and it basically means everything inside the game that is not a direct action. So basically the thought behind it, when you split push or when you decide to team fight, or even which hero you pick and which items you build, is a part of strategy, which is kind of undervalued by a lot of people. They just think that making plays and doing flashy shit is what makes you good. However, strategy is just as important. And thirdly, there is people skills. You can be one of the best players in the world, but if you don't get along with other people, it's gonna be really tough for you to get MMR, because you're not gonna empower your teammates. On the contrary, you're gonna sabotage them and make them play worse. So it's really important that, aside from the obvious stuff like skill and strategy, you also wanna make sure that your teammates have a good time. And a great example of this is actually Sir Action Slacks. In the old MMR system, he got 5k MMR and people were like, holy crap, how is that possible? He's such a shit player. And I wouldn't say he's a shit player. He's not a great player, of course, but what he did really well was motivate his team. So he was just really pleasant to be around, and if people made mistakes, he would be like, oh man, it's fine, just keep going. And when you do stuff like that, your teammates are gonna play better, so you're gonna have a higher chance of winning just by being nice and being good with people. And of course, lastly, there is common sense. This is also something that a lot of people ignore, but when you queue at like 4 in the night when you're really tired, you're gonna lose more games because you are tired. Or if you're really hungry and you play, you might not be a worse player, but you're gonna play worse because you're hungry. And of course there is one more very important thing about common sense, which is stopping when you're on a loss streak. When you're on a loss streak, you're gonna be tilted in some way. Even if if you lose 5 games in a row and it wasn't even your fault, you're still gonna feel really shitty. And if you feel really shitty, you're gonna play worse. So you just need to think like, do I really want to play now? Is it a good idea? Is it gonna improve me as a player on a long term? So you wanna keep that shit in mind when you think about MMR. It's not just skill, it's a combination of a lot of things. It's also really important to understand that MMR is not a short-term thing. It's a long-term thing. If you improve in all of these 4 categories and you put in a lot of time, you're gonna increase your MMR. But that doesn't mean that you're gonna get 200 MMR in the next week, for instance. If you look at my MMR graph over the years, this is like a graph of 3 years of playing a lot of Dota, you can see that sometimes I would play like for 4 months and I would still lose MMR. And this feels really bad, but if you look at the overall line, you can see that my MMR is improving. So when you try to raise your MMR, you need to think about where you came from, not where you came from 1 week ago, but you need to look at the big picture, otherwise you're gonna be really demotivated. And as you can see, every time I lost a lot of games, of course it felt bad, but I just kept going, and every time you lose a lot, at some point you're gonna start winning again. So you just need to keep going and look at where you came from. This is super important, and I cannot stress this enough. If you lose 10 games in a day, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Just keep going, play something else, wait until you want to play Dota again, and just start over. It's that easy. So now that we know what MMR is, let's look at some miscellaneous stuff, some small tips and tricks that are gonna help you in the long term. So first of all, get support. I cannot stress this enough. If you just play alone and you don't talk to people, it's super easy to lose perspective. And solo MMR tends to be a pretty toxic place, so you need a way to counterbalance that. So I would recommend you to find some people just to talk to when you're having a rough time, or to celebrate with if you're having a really good time. And on top of that, of finding some good friends to talk to, I would also recommend you to try to find some peers, some people around your MMR/skill who have the same ambitions as you, just to have some people who know what you're going through and to support them and get support from them along the way. I think this helps tremendously, because if you just play with random people, you're gonna probably have a rough time. So next up, get some good goals. My mom always used to say, goals are dreams with a deadline, and I think having good goals are super important. I think you should get some reasonably long-term goals, like 6 months or 1 year, but you should also have a goal every single day. When you wake up, you want to think, this and this is what I want to improve on today, because otherwise it's really easy to just autopilot and just play Dota without even thinking about improving. But I feel like having good goals and having short and long-term goals are really gonna help you with your drive. As if you just play and you think, okay, I wanna get better, it's not gonna do shit. But if you play and you think, in 6 months I wanna get 500 MMR, and today I want to get better at knowing when to TP to support the offlane, for instance, that's gonna help you a lot more. So think to yourself, what do I want, when do I want it, and how am I going to achieve those goals? Next up, stay healthy. I think you should treat Dota as any other competitive environment. If you want to do something well, or if you want to improve at something or do something at a high level, you need to make sure that you feel good. And how do you feel good? Well, you need to make sure that you eat enough, you need to make sure that you sleep enough, you need to make sure that you work out every once in a while maybe, so you don't feel like a lazy sack of shit. And one thing that really helped for me is to make sure that after every single game, before I pressed find match again, I would just take a walk through the house, maybe get something to drink, stuff like that, to make sure that your blood circulation is still going properly. Because if you sit down for a long time, it's really gonna affect you negatively. And of course this depends on how many games you're gonna play in a row. I mean, if you just play 2 games every night, I don't think it will be a problem. But if you spend like entire afternoons playing Dota and Dota and Dota, you should make sure that you move enough. So if you want to improve, just take care of your fucking body, man. Next up, have fun. If you have a shit time in any kind of way, why would you even bloody play? Most people are just gonna play for fun, even if they try to improve. So if you find yourself not having fun, why are you even playing? Just play something else, and when you want to come back to Dota, sure, go ahead, but you're not gonna improve at anything if you are super annoyed. So if you lose 8 games in a row, well, you might win the next one, but you're gonna be so annoyed already that it's not really useful for you to keep playing. So when I'm tilted or I see myself losing a lot, I just play another game for a while. Sometimes even for a few days, and when I think like, oh damn, I really want to play this hero, or I just want to play Dota again, I go and play Dota, because I'm gonna be in a better mood and in a better mindset to improve. So keep this in mind. If you're having a shit time, why would you even play? Just play something else, man. And finally, keep perspective. I see so many people, when they lose a lot of games, get really upset or tilted, and they start selling their items, raging at teammates. But if you think about it, if if you lose a few games on one day, or even if you lose a lot of games over a lot of days, does it really matter? Did you suddenly become a worse Dota player, or even a worse human being? I don't think so. I like to think of myself as not a Dota player, but a just player playing Dota. And this helps me a bit with keeping stuff in perspective. If I lose a lot, I'm gonna be like, right, I mean, shit happens. It's partially random playing Dota, so does it really matter? Am I a worse player now? Did I sabotage my own chances at reaching my goals? And generally the answer is going to be no. So just keep this in mind. Dota is a long-term thing and it's partially random. So don't get upset by stupid shit. Just keep moving. Look at the grand scheme of things. It's gonna help you a lot, trust me.